Jeffrey Sheridan. Hope everybody had a nice day today. And well, let's see what's going on today that we can talk about. Well, there's plenty of stuff that we can talk about. President Trump makes sure of that we have plenty to talk about. He's been over in Japan, terrorizing everybody over there with this with his speech that he made the other day, and with his little walk around with the prime minister that I don't know, they were inside the office building or something, and there were like troops on every side and stuff, and he started walking with her, and to look at the troops and stuff, and then he like, they got to one part, and she like kept on walking, but he just stood there, didn't go with her. So she was like halfway down. She had to come back and get him and sort of yank on him to come walk with her and stuff. And then they got to the other side. She stopped again to salute the troops or whatever, but he kept on walking like he didn't even know that she had stopped. So then she had to run to catch up to him and stuff. Oh my god. But and then he made his speech to the troops, and I cut out a few little things and stuff that it's really hard to even repeat any of his speeches, or anything, because they don't really make any sense. He just dribbles and drabbles on about this and that, and just just things that have no relevancy to whatever he started talking about. He'll start talking about this and that, and this one thing that I'll play for it. He talks about admirals, and he always wanted to be an admiral and stuff because I guess he likes their uniforms or something, and about him being too good looking and stuff, but he doesn't like good looking people, and just a bunch of BS. He just off the top of his head, and his head is not very good. I know he had that MRI there last week, and I'm really beginning to think that maybe there's a few people thinking that maybe you know he's got beginnings of Alzheimer's or something, and that maybe the MRI you know might detect some sort of something going on there or something that's not right. That's what I'm thinking that the MRI might have been for, to tell you the truth, after listening to all his speeches and how he acts. When Canada ran the one ad on tariffs last a couple nights ago during the World Series, and they showed a clip of Ronald Reagan who said tariffs were terrible, you know, and they played that commercial on the World Series, and he must have been watching it, and he got all in a tizzy wizzy about that. And he stopped the trade talks with Canada, you know, and he said, "Oh, Ronald Reagan never said that. He loved tariffs. It must be like AI generated or something." So, even though there was a film clip from Ronald Reagan saying that tariffs were a bad thing, now actually, I mean, if you look through the whole thing that Reagan said, yeah, he said tariffs were a bad thing because it invites trade wars and stuff. And the only time you might have to use it is like a short term thing to solve like one problem. If they are dumping a certain product or something that would cause a lot of harm to the economy or something, then that's when you can put a tariff on something to sort of stop that. You know, and that's all always in the past been as a short term thing to solve whatever the problem is at that time. But the way Trump, is using it, he just puts a tariff on everything. It don't matter, what it is or what effect it has. He just, well, this country's paying 15 and this country's paying 20, and I don't like this country and I don't like this leader, so I'm going to charge. I mean, just in the future, and when his historians look at this time, they're going to look and see, What in the hell was going on? Did people lose their mind that this guy was just running free and rampant and acting a fool and was able to say and do these things and nobody he stayed in there. Nobody, nobody got him out of there. Yeah, I mean, this guy controls you know, the buttons for nuclear war and stuff. You know, it's really scary when you think about it. And then the thing is that his mental faculties are not all there. I mean that's a certain thing. I don't think there's any doubt about that unless you're a really true MAGA believer. Then you would think that he's totally perfect, and even when he dies, he's still going to be alive. So it don't matter to them. But I mean, it's obvious his mental decline and stuff, and he's got his finger on the button to kill us all. But anyway, I'm gonna try and play this short little clip here, and I don't know, maybe see if you think it maybe makes any sense. I don't really think it does, but I don't know, maybe there's something you all see that you know that uh that I don't see. So let me see if we can play this.
Comes from the men and women of the rank and file. That's true. It comes from you people, incredible people, good-looking people. Too many good-looking people. I don't like good-looking people.
Good looking people.
I never liked good-looking people.
I never
I'll be
liked
honest with
good
you.
looking people.
I've never admitted that before. But see,
Never
I'm
admitted
allowed to. See, we won in the Supreme Court a thing based on merit. You know about that, right? Merit. Everything now in our country is based on merit, and
All right, now let me hold that right there. You just heard what he said. Everything is based on merit. Now, that's a big, bald faced lie. The only people that he's appointed and put into office are people that are do what he tells them to do. It's not based on merit. Kash Patel has no merit or qualifications to be the FBI head. Pam Bondi is not qualified to be the attorney general. None of these people that he's appointed are qualified for anything. It's not based on merit. It's based on, are you going to kiss my ass or not? Then you can have the job. It's just so hard for me to listen to his crap. I don't know if he actually believes this stuff or if he thinks he can just get away with saying this stuff and people just suck it up and believe whatever he says. I guess maybe he just thinks his supporters, his MAGA supporters, just eat up and just suck up everything he says. Like whatever he says is true, But that's like the farthest thing from the truth. That everything that is on merit now. That he appoints people and stuff on merit. Talk about a bunch of BS. All right, let's continue.
that's why I look at you and I see nothing but merit. It's great to have a country back where we can go by merit now. We don't go by anything else except for talent and work and hard work. And it's such a big win. That was such one of the most important wins. And I'd like to be an admiral. I always wanted to be an admiral, to be honest. Don't tell the other people that I love so much. They sit around the table, they have all those beautiful stars and stripes. But I'll tell you what I love. I will always love the admirals. I love those uniforms. And I look at these guys. I don't think I would have done very well if I had to compete with these people. They're too good. But I always felt that the Navy is a very special group of people. It comes.
So that's enough of that. All right. Oh my God. So I don't know. Can anybody make any sense, of that one or not? I'm not really sure. Um, oh boy. But anyway, let's see if we can get back to our normal picture here and stuff. All right. I mean, I could play a whole hour of crap like that, you know. I didn't even listen to all what he said the other day because I just can't really tolerate it anymore. because it's he's either lying about something completely, or making it up, or he's putting down, you know, the other side, the enemy. And so it's either his speeches are total lies or filled with hate. So it's hard for me to listen to the whole thing anymore. I mean, as soon as I basically see him on TV or something, if they're going to show some sort of clip, I usually just turn it down or turn the station anymore because it's just too much for me to even hear anymore. All the BS that's going to be coming out of his mouth. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. I mean, this whole tearing down half of the White House, thing to build a ballroom. I know people have been talking about this, for at least the past couple weeks constantly. So, at least I had to get my 2 cents in. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And then they're not, revealing who's funding it and all that stuff. That's one thing with Trump and his administration. You got to keep on guessing for everything because they're not transparent with anything. Who's funding this? Who's funding that? They won't tell you anything. The MRI that he had, last week, they won't tell you what it's for. They'll lie about it and say, well, this is part of his annual physical, which was a lie. That's not true. He already had his annual physical, and they usually don't do MRIs for annual general physicals and stuff. So we all know that's a bunch of BS. Jeez. Whew. But anyway, oh, what's going on? Well, we got some elections coming up. Some governor races are coming up. And we'll see how things go from there. I mean, I don't really see how the guy can win anything anymore. I mean, his popularity points are down, so low. Um, I don't see how he could ever win for anything, even if he wanted to run for a third term. Um, but that's a whole nother can of worms right there. You know, because if anybody would try and run for a third term, it would be Donald Trump. And I'm sure they're probably looking into it, even though it's an amendment to the Constitution that you can only, run for 2 terms, be 2 terms and stuff. I don't think it wasn't technically passed, till, was it 1946 or 56? After Franklin Roosevelt served 4 terms, but died during his 4th term, they decided, well, it's probably not a good thing, that a president, may serves more than 2 terms. It's just not a good thing. So they passed an amendment. I forget what amendment number it is. I knew at one time. Now I've totally forgotten that you could only run for 2 terms. So I mean, if he really wants to run for a third term, if he's still halfway there mentally, which I don't see how he could be because he's already going downhill right now and he's still got 3 years left in this one. But anyway, I'm sure they're working up something so they could send to the Supreme Court, their hand-picked, people that they've got stacked there, so they'll rule pretty much in their favor for just about anything. I'm sure they've got some petition or some argument that they would put before the Supreme Court and say it's unconstitutional, to put a limit on the amount of terms that a person can run for president. It's just not constitutional, you know. And I can tell you the truth, I have no idea what those ding dongs, Clarence Thomas and Alito, especially how they would vote on that, or Gorsuch, or Amy Coney Barrett. I think she might actually of all the Republican conservatives, she's probably the most open minded, of all of them. Which is a whole nother a whole nother thing is how the Supreme Court became basically six conservatives and three liberals. We're still, you know, um, that's still a sore point, with me, because I knew this is what would happen when when Mitch McConnell, stopped the nomination of Merrick Garland that Obama had put up there to be nominated. Um, and Mitch McConnell, well, Mitch McConnell, Mitch McConnell said, well, you know what, we got an election coming up next year, and maybe we should just let the people decide, who's going to be president, and then they could nominate, the next Supreme Court person. I think maybe we should just do that. Um, so why don't we just do that? So Mitch McConnell and his brilliant thinking kept the position open for like a year or so, waiting for the next election. And sure enough, they ended up winning. Trump ended up winning. So he got to put the next Supreme Court person in there as soon as he could, you know. So that was the first manipulating the Supreme Court picks right there. Never in the history of the country was a position on the Supreme Court open for a full year before they put somebody in there. But this time, well, we got to wait till the next election and see, we'll let the next president appoint it. So they kept that seat open for more than a year, and they ended up winning. So they got to put their guy in there. All right, you know, and then being prime number one hypocrites. Of course, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died a month or two before the election, you know, and Trump was in there. Oh, Mitch, you didn't hear nothing from Mitch McConnell. You didn't hear that. Well, maybe we should wait till after the next election and let the next president, appoint the next Supreme Court person. No, you didn't hear that from old Mitch when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, did you? No, it was like, well, we got to get somebody in here right away before Trump is out of office so we can get our guy in here. Yeah, that's what you heard. Completely opposite what he said about Merrick Garland. Completely opposite. Prime hypocrite. So they hurried in Amy Conehead Barrett, before the election, and Biden won. So if they hadn't hurried Amy Barrett through, just before the election, Biden won, and then Biden would have been able to appoint, his person into the Supreme Court. So they screwed around the system there again, twice. So that's two manipulated Supreme Court judges that shouldn't be there. Two that Trump appointed. And those two should have been appointed, one by Obama, one by Biden. So actually the Supreme Court should be more like 5-4, and five of them would probably be leading the Democratic or liberal or whatever you want to say, and then 4 would be more conservative, Republican. That's the way it should be if the system would have worked the way it always had in the past. If Mitch McConnell hadn't decided to play around with shit, and you know very well where he got his orders from, Donald Trump. All right. So it wasn't just Mitch McConnell, it was Donald Trump that was driving things. Well, just put a hold on Merrick Garland for a year. And then if I get in there, I'll appoint somebody. And then when Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies, well, we got to get somebody in there right away because I might lose, and then Biden would get to appoint somebody. So we got to rush somebody right through right away, which is what they did. It just, it still pisses me off to this day, because the Supreme Court is basically where most of the power is. You got your Congress, you got your Senate, you got your president, all right? But when it comes down to what's law and what's not law, it's the Supreme Court that basically has the most power, legislatively. I mean, not militarily, which the president has, but legislatively and your everyday life and stuff. The Supreme Court's the one that has the most power. And they manipulated two people in there. And look what has happened. All these bad decisions that they've made. The Citizens United, case, which basically let money run free in elections. You can spend as much money as you want to. So now we got billionaires and trillionaires, you know, basically controlling our elections, deciding if they want to put $1 billion into this Senate race or that Senate race or something. So now you got billionaires with all this money that they can decide, who they want to win and stuff, and of course, if you're a politician, you're not going to refuse somebody saying, well, hey, I want to give you $1 billion. You don't have to vote, for things I might want, but just have an open mind. Okay. I'll give you $1 billion, and stuff. You're trying to tell me that congressman or senator, if he gets elected, he's not going to remember the guy that put $1 billion into his account for him to get elected? You don't think if an issue comes up that's going to benefit his billionaire donor, he's not going to look twice at that and say, well, yeah, maybe that's not such a bad thing, because he doesn't want to piss his billionaire donor off. All right. So that's what we've come down to. That was a direct response from the Supreme Court and the Citizens United case, where it just let the money just flow in from wherever. So now you got all this graft and corruption and shit. And that's just one, bad mistake that the Supreme Court has made. And I don't know what the hell they were thinking about, basically saying that the president is above the law, that he can break the law because he's the president. Whatever happened to the no man is above the law? I thought that's what I grew up thinking, what I was always told in this country. No man is above the law unless you're the president, according to this Supreme Court. What the hell is that shit? I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, they got, whenever because this Supreme Court has reversed yeah, prior rulings of other Supreme Courts. Usually they look at prior rulings and stuff of other Supreme Courts, and they don't like to overrule them, and that's called precedent. Well, this Supreme Court don't give a crap about precedent. They're just making up their own crap. So if more liberal, open-minded people get control of the Supreme Court again, let's see if we can get these issues back up before them, and turn some of this crap around. We got to get all this crappy, dark money out of politics. We can't have billionaires deciding who's going to be running the country and crap. I mean, that's just well, you're getting what you're getting right now is what happens. All right. Anyway, and I don't know. I'm hoping that Trump's going to get off of this kick of sending troops into cities and stuff. He's got it in his mind. And I'm sure some people. I guess they asked a person that was on a subway if they felt more secure because there was like a National Guard troop, right there at the subway station and stuff. So they asked the person, "Will you feel more secure?" And I think a lot of people would probably say, "Well, yes, yeah, I feel more secure." Okay. But they're not thinking the long term. They're not thinking the slippery slope. They're just thinking right that second if they feel more secure with the National Guard person right next to them. All right. Well, hell yeah, yeah, you'll feel more secure. I mean, I'd feel more secure too if I had a National Guard person inside my house too. I'd feel more secure, you know? We had one if we had one down the corner or up or lined up and down our street. Yeah, I'd feel more secure. But do we really want that type of country? Because you know what happens, and just you may say, "Oh, that won't happen here." Okay, well, it always happens. You give a little bit of power to the people that are in power. You give them a little more, a little more, a little more. They're never satisfied at any point. They always want more, more, more power. Okay. So, yeah, you might feel more secure with a National Guard guy next to you at the subway station. But do we want National Guardsmen and military people rolling around our roads and country? Is that what we want? I don't think so. That's not America. That's not this country that I grew up in. Whew. But anyway, um, yeah, that's we gotta get away from all that stuff. Whew. So we're right on the edge of because I think I know this guy, after seeing him for a few years and stuff. I think I've got him down pretty good. All right. He's not the type of guy that's just going to stop and be content, with this or that. He's the type that's going to push and push and push and push and take and take and take and take as much as he can. He's never going to be satisfied. He's always going to want more. That's his nature. That's his narcissism. That's his well, he is a psychopath as far as I'm concerned. I don't think he does have any emotions, as far I mean, if it but you know, if it came down to people that were demonstrating in the streets or something, and maybe they were saying something, down Trump, Trump's the king or blah 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 blah. I don't think he would have any problem telling the military or the National Guard or whatever, "We'll go ahead and shoot him." I don't think he would have a problem with that. Matter of fact, I've heard comments that he's already made things like that during his first term. "Well, why don't you just shoot him in the leg?" He has no emotions. Okay. And that's one of the things when he makes a speech or something and he tries, to act old, down homey you know, uh, and try and joke with you. And, I could just see right through that crap. It's all freaking fake stuff. You know, he acts like he might like people and stuff, but he's the type of person, he doesn't like people. He hates people. He doesn't like people. And the other scary thing is the person that's behind him and whispering in his ear all the time is just as bad, Stephen Miller. Now you talk about a psychopath. That guy's even worse. Have you seen him at press conferences and answering questions sometimes? The guy is loony. I mean, and and I know very well that he's whispering in Trump's ear every day. And the thing that I'm sort of concerned about is I think Trump is probably lost a lot of his mental acuity, shall we say? And a person like Stephen Miller would just love to take over and sort of manipulate him. He would be the 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 best manipulator that you would ever see. He's just got that type of personality. He would just love to manipulate Trump into doing this and doing that, and only telling him certain things and leaving out certain things, and only telling him certain facts and leaving out other facts, so that Trump will do this or say that. Oh yeah, Stephen Miller, he is definitely that type of person. All right. Ooh. But anyway, um, I guess that's probably enough for right now. Um, I can't think of any other disasters right at the moment. At the moment, give me another 10 minutes or so. I'll be back with something else that he might have said, and then we can talk about that. But anyway, I guess that's all right for right now. I do thank everybody for listening. And we're just sort of getting started with the channel, so we're sort of improving on this and improving on that. I've got a screen and stuff I can stick behind me and everything, and I haven't really decided if I'm gonna do that or just my all natural background here, although it does look like I need a paint job and stuff on the back here and stuff, so I might start using the screen so y'all don't see my walls that need painted and stuff. And I got my dogs laying around here. I don't know if you've seen any of them or not, but they're behaving really nice, which is a change. Usually, if I start doing something else, like getting on the phone or something, they start getting sort of hyper and everything. So it's sort of hard to do, but they're being good doobies tonight. So anyway, I thank everybody for listening. This is Political Farrago with Jeffrey Sheridan, and you have a nice rest of the day. Talk to you later.